Good midday, West Side. Oh, it's all here. Well, the phrase, what's it all about, is simply another way of asking, why are we here? Or perhaps, what is the meaning of life? The particular phrase, what's it all about, comes from its association with a 1966 movie starring a much younger Michael Caine and Shelley Winters in Alfie. Or perhaps the 2004 version starring Jude Law along with Susan Sarandon. And the popular song Alfie by Dionne Warwick. In the movie, a womanizer, Alfie, discovers that a new relationship, a woman he's considering settling down with, is also sleeping around just as it's all right for him to do. And in the first movie, the background tragedy is an abortion. In the second one, the tragedy is a mixed-race baby, which didn't seem to have the same emotional impact to me as the abortion did. Ultimately, the tragedy causes Alfie to wonder, what's it all about? For me, the interesting part of the movie and the song is found in the lyrics of the song. It can be divided into two parts. The first part is economic theory applied to relationships. The song asks, are we meant to take more than we give? Or are we meant to be kind? And if only fools were kind, then it's wise to be cruel. But the second portion of the song becomes rather existential. Without true love, we just exist. Until you find the love you missed, you're nothing. The second part of the song, the existential part, begs us to make a comparison between two states, the state of just existing, of being without true love, and the state of finding the love we've missed. Is that what it's all about? Is that really what it's all about? That's a task that I have set in front of me to answer this morning. Let me begin by stating that the Unitarian Universalism does not offer an overarching meaning of life, the way many other religions do. So the thoughts and the conclusions that I have come to in this reflection are my own and only my own. If we want to ask and get answers to existential questions, we have to find someplace else to begin. I'm going to begin with the source of our modern myths, science. A lot of people think science can't give us why answers, but they're wrong. Science gives us many why answers. What it can't do is give us all the whys, or even the ultimate why. So let's begin by asking science why we're here. That's an easy one. Because our mothers and fathers had sex. And we are the product of one of our mother's eggs and one lucky sperm. The whole reproduction thing is well worked out. There's not much mystery in how we got here. And what's more, our mothers and our fathers got here the same way when their mothers and fathers had sex. It just keeps going back and back until we begin to recognize changes in our ancient ancestors. They begin to look ape-like, then lemur-like. In a process called evolution, we can continue to trace our primitive ancestors back beyond their mammalian existences, beyond their fish existences, all the way back to the very organisms that gave them existence in the first place, 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. Is that why we're here? Well, yes. But it doesn't stop there. We might ask next, why did life emerge at all? To begin with, our planet happens to exist within the Goldilocks zone of a medium yet fairly stable star. Not so far away from our sun that water freezes, and not so close that it boils away, but just right. There are many other reasons, an abundance of different elements from which organic molecules can be constructed, a rotating planet that warms and cools on a daily basis, a large nearby moon to cause tidal forces, a tilted axis to cause seasonal variations on an annual basis. All these reasons and more are why we're here. But why are the sun and the moon here in the first place? The sun is one of literally billions of stars that formed in our galaxy. They probably were orbiting a black hole at the center of the galaxy. The galaxy early on was full of interstellar dust and gas. As the stars cooled and aged, they swept up this interstellar material out of which planetoids, precursors to planets, were formed. The planets also went through a period of cleansing as their gravity continued to attract local material. That, too, is part of why we're here. But where did the galaxies come from? Most of the galaxies that we can see are flying away from us at an accelerating rate. Working backwards, we can estimate that around 13.78 billion years ago, an explosion, often called the Big Bang, threw most of the mass that exists in all directions, and with it, various forces that operate on and within that mass. That was the beginning of our cosmic existence. But it was also the beginning of all time and space associated with our universe. And what caused the Big Bang? We don't know. But because there is nothing in the entire history of our universe that is uncaused, I believe we will eventually discover that the Big Bang, too, will have been caused. I also believe that it is more honest to say we don't know than to make up causes like God did it. We may not know what caused our world, but whatever it was, that too is part of why we're here. Some cosmologists have speculated that universes are as common as stars. In our particular universe, they call the medium that contains all those uncountable universes a multiverse. Whether that's true or not, we have yet to learn. There's a lot of whys out there yet to be discovered. So now that we've explored the scientific answer to the question, what's it all about, without coming to a definitive conclusion, let me ask you, how satisfying do you suppose the scientific answer is for Alfie? I'm going to guess not very much. Alfie could care less about the Big Bang, about the development of galaxies, stars, and planets. He doesn't care about how life occurs or about evolution, or why he might look like and act like his mother or his father, even though all of that is why he is here. What he wants now is to know that he is special, and special to someone. He wants to feel someone else's touch and know that they feel his. In short, he wants to love and be loved. But who doesn't? And it seems to me as though the movie Alfie is about a man who confuses love with sex. He wants love, but he believes that sex is the way to find love. But he can never get enough sex because sex doesn't satisfy his need for love. As a consequence, he never feels satisfied and is always wondering, what's it all about? So if the scientific answer to what's it all about didn't provide a satisfying solution, let's seek another way to find a solution. Perhaps we should try the religious answer. And what might that mean? Well, it's when a group of, usually men, claim that they know how the world works because they've been to school to learn the answers. Oddly, other groups of men claim to have different answers. Sometimes even contradictory answers. How can we know they're good answers? Because they claim their answers are good answers. They were handed down via tradition. They got their answers out of a holy book, or as an answer to their prayers, or from the voice of God, or angels, or even from Jesus himself. They build big and beautiful buildings, which they fill with beautiful art and creative and inspirational music. They wear fancy robes and other unique garb. They celebrate interesting and sometimes strange rituals. They cultivate attitudes of superior knowledge and morality. Sometimes they remain single and live alone. They may eat special foods and have special days for special events. How can anyone doubt them? Well, I doubt them. I have a feeling that we had better find another solution for our question, what's it all about? Because the religious solution will ultimately be no more satisfying than the scientific one was to Alfie. How about a philosophical attempt to answer the question? Okay, but which philosophy? There are as many philosophies out there as there are religions. How can we possibly choose the right one? It's beginning to look as though there may not be a good answer to the question, what's it all about? Or at least not a satisfying one. It's like, here we are, and we have no idea why we're here. Psychologists have learned that when an individual must explain something she or he does not understand, they tend to make up stories to explain the phenomenon. In an analogous way, the human species tends not to want to exist without some understanding or explanation of why it exists. So if we cannot understand why we exist, we make up reasons. We call those reasons, those made-up reasons, myths. The most common reason we have made up is one that claims we're here because someone wants us here. Someone? Something? Some God? I've often wondered what kind of God would want, of all creatures, human beings, to be aware of it. Consequently, I believe the God we made up is a lonely God, a God who is really a projection of a lonely species. That would be us. A species that finds itself alone in a vast and empty universe, with no one else to ask or answer questions about why we are here. God is our made-up friend, who, like us, was also lonely. So we made him so he could make us to keep him company. That, my friends, is the best explanation I can give for the question, what's it all about? In other words, and in essence, here we are. We have no idea why. So deal with it as best as you can. We are such a lonely species. We have tried hard to teach other species to speak. Chimpanzees and gorillas, using either symbols on computer screens or with sign language. We're in a desperate search to find someone or something out there to talk to. Isn't that what SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is all about? We document this search in our science fiction novels and movies, like the new movie Her, starring Joachim Phoenix, who tries to have an intimate relationship with a computer operating system. We are desperate to ask some other entity, besides another human being, what's it all about? But, always seems to be a but, doesn't it? But, here's the good news. Since we have no idea why we're here, we're free to find our own reasons why. We're free to find our own reasons why existence exists and to enjoy the existence we have while we have it. Ironically, our lack of understanding, our ignorance, gives us a certain freedom we would not otherwise have had. Here's an idea. It makes sense, since freedom is our medium, is the medium within which we exist, to get together, to enjoy being together. We'll call the group that gets together a church. I don't have any particular liking for the word church. Our parent association, the Unitarian Universalist Association, calls us societies. That's a little better, as far as I'm concerned. But the term I like best is the one used by the Unitarian Universalist scholar James Luther Adams. He calls what we are voluntary associations. I like that best because I believe Adams' description best and most honestly describes and defines what we truly are. An association of people who come together voluntarily to be together. Why do we come together so voluntarily? Because somewhere, way deep down inside, we know that we're alone and lonely. And I believe that our desire to work together to make the lives of each of us, and others too, but particularly each of our lives, richer, fuller, and more filled with love, joy, beauty, and all the goodness that can and does exist in the world. And something inside tells us that when we do that, we can live in the best of all possible worlds. What we sense is that an imaginary God won't fill the need for love that we all have. And the best that we can do is to do it for each other. Talking apes won't fill it. Aliens won't fill it. Computers won't fill it. And imaginary gods won't fill it. But we can be the source of the deepest need within each of us, the need to be loved. And that is what we give each other when we voluntarily show up here weekly. We know in our hearts and in our heads that we live separate lives, but by creating institutions, voluntary associations, like our family, our communities, which is really what churches are, and our country, we have learned that we may be alone, but we do not need say that once again. We have learned perhaps one of the most important things that the human race has ever learned, that we do not need to be alone. Let's be honest. We have absolutely no idea what it's all about. And no matter how much we wish we did, still we are going to leave this life no more knowledgeable about why we came into it than we have right now. Consequently, we can be angry about not knowing, or we can realize that our time in this life is very finite, that is short and limited. And for every hour we spend being angry because we do not know the answer is an hour of happiness that we could have had that we'll never be able to recover. So that being the case, my advice to you is to love one another as deeply as you possibly can. For through love comes the happiness that makes this life that is too short, yet which we each are so privileged to have it all, meaningful. And that, Alfie, as far as I am concerned and for the time being, is what it's all about. Let us stand and join together in our closing hymn, number 95.